In our headlines on this Tuesday, September 23rd, here in South Korea. President Lee Jae-myung is in New York, poised to address his global counterparts at the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday local time, following a number of sideline engagements on Monday to advance South Korea's national interests. Meanwhile, also in New York, top diplomats of Seoul, Washington and Tokyo reaffirmed their commitment to denuclearization of North Korea through dialogue and diplomacy during talks on the margins of the multilateral UN meeting. And back here on the local front, the South Korean stock market maintains its upward momentum led by foreign and individual investors raking in shares of the country's chipmakers in this latest session. We start today with team coverage of the President's agenda in New York, where he'll be attending the 80th United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday local time. Arirang's Yoon Jung-min has our top story.
President Lee Jae-myung touched down in New York on Monday local time, opening his 5-day U.S. trip to attend the 80th session of the UN General Assembly. The general debate of the session runs from September 23rd to 29th under the theme Better Together, 80 years and more for peace, development, and human rights. In line with that, President Lee will address the 193-member body chamber on Tuesday local time as the 7th speaker. On Wednesday, Lee will chair an open debate at the UN Security Council, a first for any South Korean president, as Korea assumes the rotating presidency of the 15-member body this month. Discussions will be centered on AI and international peace and security. A number of bilaterals are also scheduled, including one-on-ones with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and the leaders of France, Italy, and Poland to discuss bilateral cooperation, including on the defense industry. An official summit with U.S. President Donald Trump is not planned, though it remains to be seen whether there will be a pull aside. On Thursday, before he closes out his U.S. trip, Lee will host the Korea Investment Summit with U.S. financiers on Wall Street to encourage investment in South Korea.
As President Lee makes his debut on the UN stage, the highlight of his trip would be his UN speech slated for Tuesday, with the focus on the resilience of South Korea's democracy, his peace vision, and Korea's global contribution. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, New York.
Now, ahead of his address at the UN General Assembly, President Lee Jae-myung on Monday met with the head of the world's largest asset manager. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin covers their talks.
Turning South Korea into Asia's AI capital. That's the vision that President Lee Jae-myung and BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, agreed to pursue together. It was the focus of Lee's first appointment in New York on Monday, a meeting with BlackRock CEO and World Economic Forum co-chair Larry Fink.
과학 기술에 대한 관심도 높고 우리 국민들이 이 변화를 새로운 변화를 받아들이는데 아주 익숙해서 앞으로 인공지능 중심 사회로 또 재생에너지 사회로 신속하게 바꾸는 데 있어서 아마 세계적으로 매우 모범적인 국가로 갈 수도 있습니다.
According to Lee's senior secretary for AI and future strategy, Ha Jung-woo, Fink expressed strong interest in investing in South Korea's AI and energy infrastructure, two of the Lee administration's key future growth engines. BlackRock is spearheading global investment in these areas by launching the AI infrastructure partnership with Microsoft, Nvidia, and xAI. Those shared priorities took shape with the signing of a memorandum of understanding. The centerpiece is the creation of a hyperscale data center in South Korea, which can meet demand not only at home, but across the Asia-Pacific region.
Building this requires semiconductors, batteries, telecommunications, power, cybersecurity, and cloud technologies. Combined with renewable energy generation, storage systems, and grid infrastructure, it will revitalize Korea's industrial ecosystem while giving Korean companies a competitive edge globally.
The MOU also lays the groundwork for a massive joint investment to support the APAC region's AI and renewable energy transition. While the exact amount will be decided once a joint task force is set up, the presidential office says the figure will be in the trillion-won range. Later in the day, President Lee met with U.S. lawmakers urging Congress to play a more active role in advancing South Korea-U.S. relations. With diplomacy and the economy being the key themes of President Lee's visit, his first day in New York reflected just that. Now more spotlight will fall on Tuesday when the president takes part in this year's United Nations General Assembly High-Level Week. 송유진, Arirang News, New York.
Addressing Korean Americans on Monday evening in New York, President Lee Jae-myung pledged to make South Korea a country that overseas Koreans can be proud of, adding that Koreans abroad had to worry about their homeland for quite some time. He asserted that it was now time for the country to think of its people and to leap forward. Again, he also vowed to streamline the voting system for overseas citizens. Also in New York, Foreign Minister Cho Hyun and his U.S. as well as Japanese counterparts have reaffirmed their commitment to denuclearization on the Korean peninsula. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has details.
The top diplomats of South Korea, the United States, and Japan in a joint statement have reaffirmed their firm commitment to the complete denuclearization of North Korea. The foreign ministers of the three countries met on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly high-level meeting in New York on Monday local time. South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Hyun, along with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya, added that effort to maintain peace and stability on the Korean peninsula will continue to be made through dialogue and diplomacy, a phrase not found in the previous Trilateral statement issued in April. The joint statement draws attention as it comes just a day after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un stated in a speech at the Supreme People's Assembly that he is open to talks if the U.S. drops its denuclearization demands, but that he has no intention of stopping his nuclear stockpiles. The three ministers also stressed the need to address together the regime's nuclear and missile programs and to maintain and strengthen the sanctions against North Korea by responding firmly and in cooperation with other countries to violations and evasions of the relevant UNSC resolutions. This, too, could be seen as a response to Kim's remark that it would be a mistake to think Pyongyang could be pressured or subdued through sanctions or shows of force. Serious concerns over North Korea's growing military cooperation with Russia, as well as worries over increasingly frequent destabilizing actions around the Taiwan Strait, were included in the statement. In terms of Washington's extended deterrence for South Korea and Japan, the U.S. reaffirmed its commitment, stressing that this is crucial for security and stability on the Korean Peninsula and in the wider Indo-Pacific region. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And North Korea's Kim Jong-un has vowed to actively bolster ties with China. According to the regime state media on this Tuesday, the remarks were made in response to Chinese leader Xi Jinping's congratulatory message to mark the 77th anniversary of the regime's founding, that is September 9th. Kim is also said to have voiced his appreciation to his Chinese counterpart for their meaningful meeting earlier this month in celebration of Beijing's Victory Day. The South Korean stock market continues its bull run with yet another fresh high on this Tuesday. Our Kim Do-yeon has the latest.
The Kospi continued its upward trend for a second consecutive day, briefly hitting a new intraday high. On Tuesday morning, it rose to 3,494.49, with the market now seen on the verge of breaking the 3,500 milestone. However, the initial momentum slowed during the day as it closed at 3,486.19, still a significant increase compared to the beginning of the year. The rally is being fueled by strong foreign and individual investor buying. In contrast, institutional investors have been net sellers. Leading this charge are South Korea's two largest companies by market capitalization, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. Samsung Electronics rose to a new 52-week high of 85,900 won during trading, with some securities firms now raising their target price to the 100,000 won range. SK hynix also continued its ascent, trading in the 360,000 won range. This bullish sentiment in the semiconductor sector follows a record-setting session on Wall Street overnight, where all three major U.S. indices closed at all-time highs, driven by gains in tech giants such as Nvidia and Apple. But amid the overall gains, there are some points to watch, as only big-name stocks are driving it up.
The significant point is that Samsung Electronics, SK hynix, and Samsung Electronics preferred shares. Just these three stocks alone account for over 17 points of the index's movement. In other words, although Celltrion also contributed 3 points with its 7% rise, the index would actually be in negative territory if these three stocks were excluded.
In addition, investors should be aware that there are signs the market is overrated, considering the KOSPI's 12-month forward price-to-earnings ratio was noted to be around 10.4 times, slightly above its 3-year average of 10.2 times. Some analysts point out that if it's above average amid a global economic slowdown, this could mean it is overrated. Kim Do-young, Arirang News.
The National Assembly is kicking off its first ever Legislative Expo on this Tuesday on its front yard in Yeouido under the theme A Path Opened by Public Participation, a Future Shaped by Legislation. The two-day event tackles three major agendas: overcoming the climate crisis, responding to regional extinction, and revitalizing the economy. People can take part by proposing legislative ideas, exploring booths showcasing exemplary laws, and joining debates and lectures tied to these issues. Recent remarks by US President Donald Trump linking Tylenol during pregnancy to subsequent diagnosis of autism in children are being rejected by researchers. Our An Sung-jin covers his remarks and more.
U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that taking Tylenol during pregnancy is, quote, not good, and that it is associated with the high risk of autism in children. Speaking from the Oval Office on Tuesday, alongside the Health and Human Services Secretary, the Food and Drug Administration Commissioner, and the Director of the National Institutes of Health, Trump said acetaminophen, commonly known by the brand name Tylenol, should only be used for high, unmanageable fevers.
So I think you shouldn't take it. And you shouldn't take it during the entire pregnancy. They may tell you that toward the end of the pregnancy, you shouldn't take it during the entire.
Trump, during a speech, claimed that autism rates have surged over 400% since 2000 and alleged a strong link between the use of Tylenol during pregnancy with the increased risk of autism. Tylenol is often used as a pain reliever for general fevers, and not treating a fever for pregnant women can be dangerous for both the fetus and the mother. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology refuted Trump's claim by noting that doctors across the country have consistently identified Tylenol as one of the only safe pain relievers for pregnant women, and added that Trump's announcement is not backed by the full body of scientific evidence and simplifies the complex genetic causes in children. The group further said there is no conclusive evidence for a causative relationship between Tylenol and autism. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Russia's Vladimir Putin has proposed extending by 1 year the only remaining pact between Moscow and Washington regarding nuclear weapons control. Our Lee Seung-jae explains.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said Monday that he's ready to extend the last remaining arms control treaty between Moscow and Washington by 1 year if U.S. President Donald Trump agrees to do the same.
Therefore, after February 5, 2026, Russia is prepared to continue adhering to the central quantitative limits of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty for 1 year. Going forward, based on an analysis of the situation, we will make a decision on continuing to adhere to these voluntary self-limitations. We believe this measure will only be viable if the United States acts in a similar manner.
The treaty, known as New START, is set to expire on February 5, 2026. It limits the number of strategic nuclear warheads the two countries can deploy, as well as the missiles and bombers capable of delivering them. However, talks on renewal or a potential replacement have yet to begin, largely due to deep differences over the war in Ukraine. President Trump has also indicated that any new arms control framework should include China, adding another layer of complexity. Putin said a one-year rollover would serve the interests of global non-proliferation and could help jumpstart dialogue with Washington on a longer-term successor to the treaty. Meanwhile, the White House responded cautiously, with spokesperson Caroline Leavitt on Monday, saying Russia's proposed extension sounds pretty good.
The president is aware of this offer extended by President Putin, and I'll let him comment on it later. I think it sounds pretty good, but he wants to make some comments on that himself, and I will let him do that.
For now, the possibility of a short-term extension offers a rare opening for cooperation between Washington and Moscow, even as relations remain strained due to the ongoing war in Ukraine. 이승재, Arirang News.
This year's Busan International Film Festival also celebrated the contributions of Korea's oldest living movie maker. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo had the pleasure of meeting with him for his humble take on his lifelong work. Do take a listen.
79-year-old director Jeong Ji-young received a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Busan International Film Festival, but he admits the moment was bittersweet.
At first, a bit sad. I got to think of my age, which I didn't before, and I'm not that incredible, so was a bit embarrassed. I just lived as who I am, making movies. I just hope people don't treat me differently after winning the award.
Jeong has spent decades making films, often under challenging circumstances, but he shared where his continued passion comes from.
Honestly, I just did it, and I was fortunate over the years. Many fellow directors who started with me aren't making films anymore. Opportunities come if you work hard. Of course, everybody does their best.
He said he was lucky again to raise funds through a public campaign to work on a new project set to be released in theaters next April.
I am proud of making the first popular film about the Jeju, April 3rd incident, which has usually been made in indie or documentary films in the past. I thought the incident doesn't have a precise name because people call it in their own way. The title is My Name Is, hoping it helps find its identity.
He also praised the talent of Korean movie makers amid the recent global popularity of Korean content.
Koreans are naturally talented. In the past, it took a lot to make an actor. These days, if we help them a little, their potential is fully realized. There's so many great actors now. It's all about developing that talent.
Despite that, he spoke about challenges the Korean film industry is also facing, including shrinking audiences at theaters.
지금 한국 영화 산업이 위기라는 지적들이 있습니다. 이 상황을 어떻게 바라보시는지 또 앞으로 어떻게 극복해야 된다고 보시는지 궁금합니다.
Korean culture is trending globally. But to be honest, its roots are shallow. As in the past, we were colonized by Japan. And after the Korean War, we absorbed American culture. So arts policies need to strengthen the foundation and preserve our cultural heritage.
Stressing the need for governmental support, he added scholars need to study on how to make greater policies. But he also rejected the idea that Korean cinema must dominate the world like Hollywood.
Around 20 to 30 billion won is spent on Korean blockbusters. Hollywood films are almost 10 times that. But culture is for exchange, not domination. We need African movies. We need Latin American. Dominating the world with soft power isn't what we need to pursue.
And at the end of the day, director Jeong says he'll keep making films non-stop unless the audience stops wanting him. But even if so, Jeong says he'll keep working on film-related projects until the final scene of his life. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News, Busan.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In the UK, the Palestinian Mission in London raised a flag at a site that will become the Palestinian Embassy, following Britain's formal recognition of Palestinian statehood. Meanwhile, France has joined several Western countries in the recognition. On Monday in London, a ceremony took place outside the Palestinian Mission in Hammersmith, where Ambassador Hussam Zomlot raised the Palestinian flag and unveiled a plaque that read, Embassy of the State of Palestine. Zomlot stated that the Embassy of the State of Palestine will be placed right behind in this building. This follows the UK government's announcement on Sunday that it would recognize Palestinian statehood. Up to now, the mission has operated without embassy status. Canada, Australia, and Portugal have also recognized Palestine's statehood, and France made its official declaration in New York. In response, the White House said that President Donald Trump disagrees with the U.S. allies who have declared recognition of a Palestinian state, stating that he believes it would be a reward for Hamas. In the United States, the Jimmy Kimmel Live show is officially returning to ABC. The show had been suspended indefinitely 6 days earlier, following comments made by Kimmel about right-wing activist Charlie Kirk's death. Disney's ABC announced on Monday that Jimmy Kimmel Live will resume airing on September 23rd, and that the decision was made after internal discussions with Kimmel and was not influenced by regulators or affiliate networks. The initial suspension came after Kimmel's monologue on September 15th, where he criticized supporters of Donald Trump for what he described as attempts to politicize Kirk's murder. His remarks sparked backlash from conservative commentators, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, and major network affiliates, including Nexstar and Sinclair, which pulled the show from various local stations. In response, hundreds of celebrities signed a public letter in support of Kimmel's right to free speech. In its statement, Disney acknowledged that Kimmel's comments were perceived as ill-timed and thus insensitive, but emphasized his right to express his views. American chipmaker Nvidia announced on Monday that it will invest up to $100 billion in OpenAI as part of a strategic partnership aimed at expanding its data center capacity. The plan includes deploying at least 10 gigawatts of Nvidia systems, which will involve millions of GPUs, with the first gigawatt expected to become operational in the second half of 2026. Under the deal, OpenAI will purchase data center chips from Nvidia, while Nvidia will acquire non-controlling shares in OpenAI. This investment will enable OpenAI to scale its infrastructure in response to the growing demand for large-scale AI models. Following the news, Nvidia's shares rose by nearly 4%. Finally, the world-renowned Pompidou Center in Paris, France, closed on Monday evening for a 5-year renovation, with reopening projected for 2030. The nearly 50-year-old modern arts museum is renowned for its multicolored exterior, exposed piping, and escalators, and attracts millions of visitors annually. The renovation work, to be led by Japanese architectural firm Moro Kusunoki in collaboration with Frida Escobedo Studio and technical partner AIA Life Designers, is estimated to cost approximately $542 million. Major renovation priorities include upgrading fire safety, enhancing accessibility, and cutting energy consumption by as much as 40%. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Today is the autumn equinox, which means the length of day and night is the same. There's typical autumn weather with a large daily temperature difference all over the country. As the rain clouds gradually gather, it will rain across the country tomorrow and Thursday. More than 80 millimeters of rain will be concentrated on the Seoul metropolitan area, inland areas of Gangwon-do province, and the Chungcheong-do provinces, and more than 100 millimeters will also fall on the west coast of Chungcheong-namdo and western Jeollanam-do provinces. Seoul, Daegu, and Gyeongju will start off at 20 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon at 17 degrees. Highs will move up to 25 degrees in Seoul, 28 degrees in Daejeon, Daegu, Gyeongju, and Busan. Most of this rain will stop by Thursday morning. Please take care. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines for now. Thank you for watching. Do stay tuned for our panel session.